Yo, what's up? He's Greg. I'm your boy Robert. We are the All Out of Fucks podcast. Welcome back. Thanks for checking in. This is episode 33. We about to talk about conspiracies. What's good with it, man? What's going on?
Man, chilling. Hey, I've been sitting here all week long trying out different cigars, and I done I done got into a couple of these cigar clubs, so they've been sending stuff. They've been sending stuff, and I've been sitting here like going, okay, I want to try this one, I want to try this one, I want to try this one. But other than that, I've been literally looking up because I got a subscription to Cigar Aficionado now. I've been looking up certain cigars, their ranking and their notes and all that other stuff. So I've really got into reading up on some of this stuff to the degree it's kind of scary.
Yeah, speaking of which, I had told myself I was going to sign up for that subscription. Even though people don't sign up for subscriptions, this motherfuckers listen to us like you old motherfuckers reading magazines and shit.
You were like, did that nigga say he was reading a magazine? Like for real? Like they still make magazines? Yes, they still make magazines. You
I was
go to
about
the
to say,
goddamn grocery store.
does anybody read magazines anymore? Like for real? Like
I mean, truthfully, man, Guns and Ammo and all the magazines is still there. And quite frankly, I'll go to the grocery store in a minute and get me a gun magazine. It's just something about flipping the pages, looking at all these damn guns. I swear, I'm like, all right, here we go. I'm gonna buy this one. I'm gonna buy this one. I'm gonna buy this one. It's different when it's digital. I don't know.
right.
It's just
Yeah, I
different.
mean, I get it. I mean, I'm just saying nobody. It seems like nobody processes their information in print anymore. Like everybody's getting this shit online. I guess it's part of what the fuck we talking about today is conspiracy theories and shit. Nobody know how to go through this information and shit. So uh, yeah, I mean, it's part of the problem. Motherfuckers ain't actually reading.
I was about to
And
say, motherfuckers don't read shit.
I feel bad. I mean, because I read. For my job, I have to read all the time, so I don't get a chance to even read at home. So
Right.
I'm constantly in because there's no time to sit and fucking read a book. I fuck around, read a book, and fall asleep at home. So I do Audible all the time.
Yeah.
It's just easier. So it's the only way I can kind of get some leisure, quote unquote, reading in. But it's all good.
Oh
But
yeah, but you still get the information in. I mean, but it's just something about literally opening a book and just flipping through the pages and reading what a paragraph and then might not understand it and you get to, get your pen out and or your highlighter. That shit's old school. You get your highlighter out.
Greg over here, old ass shit.
Get your highlighter out and highlight what you don't understand and go look it up and shit. Yeah.
Greg over here using whiteout and shit. Like what the fuck?
Hey man, somebody, let's talk about that for a second.
What whiteout?
Whiteout. All right,
Okay, all
so
right.
because think about this. Okay, for all you young motherfuckers, here's how this goes. Back in the day before computers did every fucking thing, include type your damn term paper, you would have to use this thing called a fucking typewriter. And you put the fucking paper in, and it had the same keyboard, well, with a few extra keys as your laptop. And you would fucking type. Now, you know how you could just hit delete or backspace on your fucking keyboard and if you could start over? Yeah, that shit didn't exist. So if you fucked around and hit the wrong goddamn key and put an R where a T was, you had to go get this little bottle. It's called Whiteout. They would they would put it in every kid's school packet of supplies every year. You had to get this bottle, and you basically for girls, it's just like opening up the shit you paint your nails with. You open up the damn nail polish bottle, it looked like that, and it has a little brush on it, and it you take it and you wipe that brush on the fucking paper because the paper's white, so the shit's white, and you blow on it, let that shit dry, and then you hit the right key and type over that shit. That shit's called whiteout. Motherfuckers used to sniff this shit. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
They probably still do. Somebody done found a way to manufacture some shit watching Breaking Bad. They're like, oh, I can turn some whiteout into some shit, probably.
I know,
You know
right? Niggas just sniff whiteout. They be sitting there huffing that shit. You're like, okay, what the fuck are you doing? Kid be in the corner of class just sitting there. Like, what are you fucking doing? Like that fucking that's a chemical, you dumbass. But back to the real shit. It just made me
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I mean, you just we went on a real old tangent. Like, let me tell you about something called a typewriter.
There was
Like,
this
what
thing,
the
there was
fuck
this
is that?
device, wizardry. It was just wizardry.
I wonder how we got anything accomplished when I think about some of the technology. I'm like, damn, that's so inefficient. Like, fuck. I remember we had to put stuff on 3.5. And
Index
so,
cards.
no, I was
uh
gonna say like the computer discs, but the thing that
oh
always bothered me as a younger person was when they called them 3.5 discs floppies, but the motherfuckers wasn't floppies. Then they had the 5 1/4 joints, which actually was floppies, but they didn't call them floppies.
well, see, the original floppy is the 5 1/4 joint, and then
Yeah, but
people
they
just kept the word. They just kept the word floppy, and floppy became every fucking thing. Like any type of thing you would stick into your drive, that was a floppy, although it was nothing floppy about it.
I remember the first computer we had in our house was a Tandy 1000.
Hmm.
So Tandy 1000 basically it was just like the keyboard and the hard drive were the same thing. Then it had the monitor on top of it, and so this is how old school was. So this is why. So I laugh at folks because our generation is really like the generation that straddles the line between technology and no technology.
Correct.
So um, you had to write in MS DOS prompts in order to get into your programming, like from the run menu.
Yeah.
Like so, you had to know like basic level. I mean, candidly, you had to know basic level programming just to use the computer.
Right. And then what do you have to do now? It's basically for all you young people, that's that command prompt screen that you
They
might
don't
have to
know.
go
They don't know
into.
what that is, man. Like
I was
now,
about to say,
some of them may know because if they do like coding for like apps, they may know some of that shit. But
right. That's what I'm saying. I think it's called command prompt screen now. So that's how you used to do everything. You used to fucking turn your computer on, you used to go a semicolon, type in the fucking word of whatever program, hit enter, it wait a minute, then it'll say insert disk. You put the goddamn disk in, it make a whole lot of fucking noise. And then it will read the disk, and then it says, take this disk out and put in the next disk. You would have 10 disks you would have to do just to do one goddamn thing.
yeah, I remember. So I remember me and a cousin of mine playing with the MS DOS prompt screen, and we just started typing shit in. And I think somebody had buried like certain shit in the programming because if you typed in certain stuff, it would actually give you responses and shit, like it was responding to you. So as a kid, we'd be like, "Oh shit, this is my fucking computer's alive." Like it's responding to us. Like now as an adult, I'm like, some programmer just buried that shit in the
And
program
fuck with people. Yeah,
to
man.
fuck with people. But as a kid, you was like, oh shit, let's see what else we can type in here. So yeah, it's actually if you think about it, it's pretty amazing from our generation to kind of see the transition because our parents could say the same thing, but technically they're not utilizing the technology at the same rate we are. Like my folks still struggle with just like FaceTime and shit like that, so they haven't fully embraced the technology, but our generation is the first one to actually fully and be engrossed in the technology and utilize it, understand it, and but still remember a time when you didn't have all that shit because it was
Yeah,
totally different.
our generation is the bridge between analog and digital.
which
They
is a which is an interesting perspective to be in because you just is
yeah,
you you understand how all that shit works. So,
like
so,
I'm
so
I'm smart enough to stay updated with technology as it
mm,
transforms, but I'm also smart enough to live without it.
right,
You see what I'm saying? Like
right.
kids now would not truly be able to live without it. They'll fucking lose their mind.
Well, shit. I mean, we've all been conditioned to a point of not remembering what it was like. I mean, shit. Do you even remember how you got places without like GPS and areas you weren't familiar with, other
I
than
I
a
still try to
TripTik
do it.
and MapQuest?
Yeah, I still try to fucking remember numbers, phone numbers.
Yeah,
Like
phone numbers. Yeah, that's
I
yeah, that's the real crazy shit. Like,
yeah, I still try to force myself to remember a phone number because it's so easy to sit there and add a contact and be done with it, not even
right.
think about it. And
Yeah,
then
there's few numbers that I've memorized. Like I mean, I still obviously my immediate family, my wife, those numbers, like those type of numbers. I memorize those, but But there's no reason to. I mean, because you're right, you just basically hitting the contact, like boom, you don't ever need to type the shit in.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
there's kids haven't seen payphones. Like, there's no payphones anymore. Like,
Yeah.
it just don't exist. But I mean, I'm sure there's some places in the cities that there's some payphones, but for the most part, that shit don't exist either. So,
I was about to say, I don't even think if you find one, I don't even think that bitch hooked up. Because
right,
at this point, why is the telephone company even paying for that motherfucker to still be? Because
right.
you
It's
gotta
because it's
pay somebody to go collect that shit
because it's the government checking up on you.
with a payphone.
Yeah,
Remember,
it's not really a payphone.
here you go. Remember when that shit was what's the movie? Fuck it. Goddamn Will Smith. Enemy of the State. Remember when Enemy of the State came out
Yeah,
and motherfuckers was like, oh, they can use satellites to fucking look down on you, man. That shit's not real. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, motherfucker, that's
who
Google
didn't think
Earth.
the enemy of the state wasn't real? Did
Right.
people
That
actually
was
think that?
Google Earth.
I never doubted the fact. I mean, because that's government. Like government, they always gonna do shit like that. I mean, so, but
Well, that,
that's kind of, I guess, along the lines of what we're doing today. I mean, government, you gotta assume they're observing you. The NSA doing their thing, like they paying attention to motherfuckers. Like they, I mean, that's kind of they bag. You know what I mean?
right.
So, but before we jump into some stuff, as always, we got to take care of some business. We appreciate y'all checking in on us, checking in on that whatever platform you subscribe to. We're available on all the major platforms, so just check us out, just search us, and if you can, we'd appreciate it if you subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review, whatever whatever's your pleasure. Check us out on our social media platforms or shoot us an email. All that stuff is available on the various platforms or wherever you're checking this stuff out at. I do want to give a shout out. There's a law school classmate of mine. She listens to the podcast out in California. She she just sent me an inbox. Uh, was it this morning? And so this is a friend of mine, Justine. What's up? She actually we went to law school together. They have two kids. Her and her husband have two kids about the same, almost the exact same ages and difference in age as me and my wife's kids. So we bond over just telling stories about kids and now they're growing up. But
Right.
she is an avid listener of the podcast
Oh, that's what's
and
up.
she said that our podcast is the only podcast she can listen to that her daughter won't be talking all the way through while they're driving in the car. So shout out Ryan, if you listening, if your mom listening to this in the car, what up? Be good. Hope you're doing good in the potty training, just like our son. Hopefully, he's trying to get his potty training together too. So, I just want to say a shout out to Ryan. But
Right.
as always, we appreciate everybody that's listening. If if you send us a note, we're always going to try and shout you out and reach out to you, let you know that we appreciate the love. But man, blowing smoke session, man. How's the week been? I know you said you've been checking out homes, and it's been. I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of shit going down.
Yeah. I mean, between that and my damn cigar aficionado scrolling, my week has
Yeah.
been pretty much locked up, man. I mean, seriously. Like I found
Greg got me subscribing, looking over here at the subscription, but I can't do it, dude. Like I'm fully integrated into digital. Like all I think about getting the magazines is that shit just stockpiling in my house and magazines just filling up my coffee table and shit. Like I gotta go digital probably.
well, here's the thing. I think you can go digital with the subscription,
Yeah, you can.
but
I'm looking it up right now.
yeah, so you can go digital with the subscription, but literally it's just something about literally turning the pages. But I mean, I'm remembering back when I was younger and I used to have like Right On magazine, Word Up magazine, stuff like that. You could
Right.
cut the pages out. Hell, you could cut the
Shit.
pages out, and make wallpaper out that bitch.
Greg over here gonna use all that shit. He gonna cut pictures out and shit, put it on the poster board.
Yep, I sure
Like
am.
that's the thing. Like for me, and I guess like I mean, but it's not even a magazine I could use. Like and say, okay, if my kids somehow like have a school project or some shit like that, what they gonna use on the cigar aficionado? Like
Oh,
they're
it
gonna.
ain't for them at all. Like
That's
literally,
what I'm saying. But like,
yeah.
all I can see is that magazine just basically just piling up somewhere in the house, like taking up space. Like, and I'm one of the people that got a whole bunch of old magazines and shit. Like, oh, these is my old cigar aficionado magazines. Used to read back in 21.
Back in 21. We are now back in the fucking roaring 20s. Just different fucking millennium. But that's hilarious.
So, but yeah, I mean, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna see, cause I got what subscription do I have? So I got Wall Street Journal. I got a digital subscription to that.
Okay.
Columbus Dispatch, some local newspapers. I it just allows me to consume a lot of information, man. So
Hmm.
that's how it is today, just consuming a lot of information. But man, I wanted to ask you. I mean, we had talked about this before. Have you moved any closer to getting one of the vaccines or not? You still checking everything out? Because more and more people around me are starting to get or schedule the vaccines. Because I think right now they've only moved on to 75 or older group. So that's who they're doing vaccinations of now.
Oh, that's what I was about to say. I don't think they've. Um, we're not in stage three yet, where it's just everybody.
Well, there
So,
are some places where you can kind of sneak in probably at a younger age because basically what will happen is they'll have a supply of the vaccine and people will be scheduled to come in and get the vaccination and they don't come in and they have to use it up before they
oh, it
can't
expires. It.
for because the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine, those both had to be kept at lower temperatures. I think the Moderna vaccine is actually even more fragile than the Pfizer one, so
Okay.
it's just harder to kind of keep that one intact. So
Right.
that's why they have to use them joints quick.
Okay.
It's going to be one of the differences with the Johnson and Johnson joint. It's not going to have the same level of issues. I think.
Okay.
Well, so I'm trying to think. Yeah, so I think that's how it works. So the Pfizer, I mean, the Pfizer and the Moderna both are better off than the what's the AstraZeneca. So
Hmm.
that one's more sensitive than all of them. So like some of them being used in places like Africa and places like that, India, because you don't have to. There's not a lot of stuff you have to do to maintain and use them. So that's why they're able to use them. So
Right.
I'll be honest with you, man. I was just checking out all the information on this shit, on these vaccines, just trying to get a handle on, what's the medicine and the science behind it. I mean, it's a fucked up situation all the way around. It's like you either get COVID or, you just take a look at this vaccine and chances are the vaccine you probably be okay. But I mean, there's issues. I mean, the vaccine, the Moderna and the Pfizer, they use this messenger RNA to basically tell your DNA or everything what to do. Like, all right, you need to make sure you generate these protein spikes from this COVID so you can develop an immunity to it. And that's one of the conspiracies we'll get into later.
Right.
People who think that that's just changing their DNA. And I guess that's a valid concern, but that's why you got to look into like the medicine behind it. But then you got the Pfizer. The Pfizer is a little bit different because it's the stuff that Moderna and Pfizer are using. I'm sorry, Johnson and Johnson, but the stuff that Moderna and Pfizer are using, it's not a new technology, but it's a new technology for humans. So they've used it before in other areas, but it that's why they're able to. The reason why they use this technology is because they're able to get it to market quicker. Okay, because they're not actually introducing COVID into your body, right? So that's the difference between that vaccination and the Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson, it introduces a COVID
Strain.
string, but it doesn't. It minus all the shit that fucks you up. Okay,
Right.
so it just introduces enough to basically so your body knows how to develop the immunity and develop a response to it. That's why that was taking longer because it's more of the traditional vaccination. So
Right.
it's more those are more tried and tested and tried and true methods, and it's been processed a little bit more efficiently. So it takes long. That takes longer to get to market, whereas this using the messenger RNA shit that basically is that's a new concept when it comes to delivering a vaccination to us.
Mm.
Okay, so that's
That
what at
would
least
that would
that's what the
concern me.
journals say. Well, yeah, I mean that's
That would
as you're reading the
concern me.
journals, it's like okay, that gives you pause, right? You're like okay, but I guess the difference is when you think about it, it's it's a little bit different, right? Because basically that messenger RNA is going in saying, look, do this, and then basically it's gone, right? Whereas the traditional vaccine introduces a virus into your system on some level and is like, okay, here it is, develop the immunities and you should be good, right? So one of them's tried and tested, but I can see either way. I can see concerns and or benefits, right? I don't think there's really. I mean, no, there's no ideal scenario, right? I mean, you
So
talk
base.
about vaccinations. That's how the shit works. I mean, you're gonna have to do some shit that you're uncomfortable with.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to be, like I said, it's a lose lose situation. if you want to look at it that way, but or it could be a win lose situation.
Sure.
That's how they want you to look at it. It's like a win lose. You take the vaccination, you don't die from COVID. But some people look at it as a lose lose. I take the vaccination, I don't die from COVID, and then in another 5 years, I grow a third fucking arm or some shit. Like they're thinking of it in terms of, yeah, I won't die from COVID, but what is it fucking up? Like literally, what's it screwing up that I don't know about? So,
Well, shit. Let's. I guess. Fuck it. Let's kind of. I mean, I don't know if
which is our topic for today.
I'll save that a little bit. So real quick, Super Bowl. What you think about this guy Tom Brady finding his way into another Super Bowl? What you think about that shit?
So, Tom Brady, as a Steelers fan, I could say a lot about this dude, right? What I'm going to say as a Steelers fan is probably blasphemy, but I don't give a shit. It's true. This man has probably created the greatest NFL career in the history of the game. I mean, god damn. If he is not the GOAT,
Yeah, he's
show
clear.
me who it is.
He's
Show
clearly
me.
the he's
That's what
clearly
I'm
the
saying.
NFL go. And this is coming from somebody who's a Colts fan, Peyton Manning guy.
That's what
Uh,
I'm saying. Like, show
he,
me that person. If
I
he
don't
ain't
know,
the one.
because I mean, like, so let's be fair though. Like to some, so there's definitely obviously there's some factor to him being on the squad and the leadership he provides. But I think the squad wasn't bad before. It's just Jameis Winston was the quarterback and he had a bunch of turnovers and shit. Like you cut down the turnovers, perhaps this is the squad you have, right? So that's what Tom Brady provides for you, right? So he cuts down the mistakes, he makes the right play, you and get the right opportunities. I mean, he got a perfect draw though this playoff. So he got a weak Washington team that won the NFC East with 7 wins under 500, 2 games under 500.
Mm-hmm.
Then he faced broke down Drew Brees in the next round. So I mean, and then you know, so and I mean let's be honest, he got lucky that Aaron Rodgers couldn't close the deal on this shit because his defense was playing out of his mind, but he threw 3 picks this last game in the
I was
conference
about to say
championship.
in the fucking second half, there's 3 picks in the second half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, so
So
there's 3 picks in the second half. If Rodgers converts on any of those 3 picks, it's a totally different ball game. But I mean, he goes 3 and out 2 of those right away, and then the crazy shit was
field goal.
the field goal. I didn't understand the. I mean, they said the analytics say to kick the field goal. I didn't agree with that. I mean, from my perspective, it was like okay, they were down 5. Let me see,
You
were they down 5?
you're down 5. It was what, 28-23, right?
They weren't down 5. They were down. What were they down? Um,
Oh no, 28-23. That was in the third quarter. Sorry.
yeah. So whatever it was, I didn't seem like a good idea. I mean, so I get it. You're thinking, okay, if we don't convert this fourth down, we're down 2 scores. But I felt like if you kick the field goal and then come down and kick another field goal, you're still down 2 scores anyway. So it just didn't. The math didn't sound right to me. Or
Well,
if they
the
if they
math
get a
wasn't
touch.
right because it was if you kick the field goal, odds are they're going to go down and score a touchdown. Like the way the math has been going,
Right.
it
Well, I
wasn't
mean,
field goal for field goal. It was field
right.
goal for touchdown. So
And
just
I get
yeah.
yeah. And I get it. So I mean, they're looking at it like, okay, we got basically like 3 minutes left. We got all 3 timeouts. We got the 2 minute coming up. We got Aaron Rodgers. Let's kick this three so it gets us within what 5. And
Mhm.
they had missed the 2 point conversion early on, and then so a lot of shit just went Tampa's way. That touchdown at the end of the first half. That what's his name? King got beat on. I don't know what the fuck they were doing on that defense. I mean, it's 8 seconds left. What the fuck are you doing playing man to man? But I don't know what the fuck's going on there. But and he just got beat straight up. I mean, he had help. I saw the play. He had help to the middle. I don't know why he's playing the inside on this receiver rather than just pushing him to the outside. But it is what it is. So I mean, yeah, I mean Tom Brady's in the Super Bowl. But I think he got a pretty good fucking draw. Oh man, he kind of. I mean, I guess that's how it works. I mean, you got to be lucky on some level with this shit, but he'll fuck around and win. I mean, it sounds like. So Patrick, I mean, Kansas City look good. Don't get me wrong; they look like they ain't fucking unstoppable. Like they're over here playing around with people, but it's hard to tell because I know that it looks like one of the offensive linemen is going to be out for the Super Bowl. So I don't know how that's going to play. And then Mahomes is dealing with a foot issue, so it's hard to tell.
But if Mahomes is who they say he is, this is setting it up for maybe a true passing of the torch type situation.
Yeah, that's how they'll market it. I mean,
Yeah.
so they had a couple. I mean, it was an ideal Final Four, so to speak, of quarterbacks. I mean,
Hmm.
um, everybody's playing well. You know, if it's Mahomes Rogers, you got arguably the two most talented quarterbacks in the league playing each other.
Hmm.
Um, and that's a marketing bonanza. It would be state farmed out that entire fucking Super Bowl would have been.
Right.
Um, but now you got Tom Brady, the goat, going up against the young upstart, the guy who's supposed to be taking the tour. That's how they gonna market it. I mean, so
Well, yeah, because if Mahomes wins, he's got two
in
back
a
to
row,
back
back to back,
at
and
his
he's
age.
in his third year in the league or fourth year in the league, one of the two. I think fourth year.
Right.
Um,
So that's what I'm saying. That starts the quote unquote what I used to call the tiger chase. That starts the chase at that point because he's young enough to actually catch. Now you got to think about it. If Tom wins, he's going to have 7. He's been to 10. So
yeah,
Mahomes
that's
got some
crazy.
work. Yeah, Mahomes got
That's
some work.
crazy though. If you think about like going to 10 Super Bowls.
Yeah, yeah. So he's got some work to do, but I'm just saying it's setting it up for a good passing of the torch. But like I said, I'm a Steelers fan, true and true, and I'm tell you right now that dude's the goat. Like you got to be realistic. See, this is the one thing that I wish would come back in America. You can be realistic. You can like who you like, but come on, man, be
Yeah,
realistic
you
with the
gotta
shit.
be. I mean, and I want to hate Tom Brady, right? Like, and well, you know what's interesting is I actually don't have as much beef with him since he left New England because it feels like he left the corporation, he left the big bad empire, like he was
Right,
done wrong. Like, okay, maybe it wasn't Tom, maybe it was all just the big bad Patriots, but
right.
um, yeah, I mean it's hard to knock it, man. He's doing his thing, shit. I mean he's what 80 years old and shit. Basically, still going to the Super Bowl. I mean, Tampa's playing the Super Bowl in their own stadium. I didn't realize that the Super Bowl was in Tampa.
Yeah. See, and before you motherfuckers sit there and say, that's all we trying to say about LeBron and Jordan. Okay, the difference is y'all motherfuckers made Draymond Green 7th on the most valuable players list. That shouldn't have ever happened. Don't say shit to me about Jordan and LeBron. Anytime you got MVP rankings and Draymond Green's on it, there's a fucking problem with what the fuck you doing. But anyway, I digress. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
well, that's just not the same shit. I mean, Tom Brady has won at a different level than LeBron has ever won at. I mean, so that's. I
Well,
mean, because the reality is Tom Brady has more chips than anybody. So LeBron can't say that.
LeBron can't say that, and I
He's
mean,
been to
I'm not.
more.
It's
He's been
apples
to
and
more.
oranges. Don't get me wrong. I got it. It's
Right.
apples and oranges. But when people keep making these fucking Twitter comments and saying he's the most decorated basketball player in history, it's not true. You may want it to be. It physically is not true. There's a level of basketball LeBron never ever played. He never played college basketball. So you cannot discount all the accolades that come with playing college basketball.
Right.
There's
Well, I mean,
there's player of the year awards. There's fucking NCAA championships. That's all shit LeBron never did. You can't say he's the most accomplished basketball player if he missed that step. You know who didn't miss that step? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
so to be fair, it's not. I don't know if it's fair to say he missed the step. He was just talented enough not to have to take that step, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying that he could not have taken the step. I'm saying he made a choice and his choice worked out for him.
I mean,
But
is it
for
really a
those
choice?
people,
Was it really a choice though? I mean, it was a no-brainer. Like, I mean, it's not really a choice when everybody says you're, and it's proven to be true, the most talented prospect to come out since I don't know ever. Other, I guess, since Lou Alcindor.
that's what I'm
Um,
saying. Like it's fine. That was him. I'm not knocking him for doing it. I'm talking to the people who are sitting there just blatantly saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, he's the most accomplished." But like that is technically you're. It's not true.
Right.
He's not the most accomplished. Like if you laid out all of Kareem's awards and laid out all of LeBron's championships, I'm gonna tell you right now, Kareem's gonna have more awards than LeBron. That's a fucking fact. You may not like it, but it's a fucking fact. It may not click with you, but it's a fucking fact. And the same goes for Tom. Tom is got to be the greatest fucking NFL player in the history of the game. And you can say Jim Brown and you can say all these fucking people, but if you look at fucking Tom Brady, all that dude do is win.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to knock it. I mean, so Super Bowl, shit, we'll see what happens. In these playoffs, the NFL's basically been like, fuck this COVID, we need this money. And folks have been in these stands. I mean, they're trying to spread them out and socially distance them, but, it is
Right.
what it is.
And he's
Um,
not out of his 10, he's not 3-7. But anyway, go ahead, keep
well,
going.
that's the point I was making. Like, so that's one of the points I was making. Like,
Yeah.
basically, he, I mean, he's won more, right? So he's won more of his appearances than LeBron. And because the reality is, for all the talk about LeBron having been to more finals than Michael Jordan, well, how come he's not winning more? Like, if that's the case, if he's the GOAT, he would have won a higher percentage of those, and he would have been clear at the six that Jordan has.
Yeah, because he would have been better than all these people that they're saying, all this talent that they're saying that he, and all this competition that he
Right,
has to play against. He would be better than them. When you are the GOAT, you're better than your competition in your era in which you play.
right.
There
Because
is no competition
the
when you're
the
the
only
GOAT.
the only pass he gets is his first time you went to the finals, right? I don't know if that's a pass, but I mean, I get why you didn't win that one. You was probably ahead of schedule during on that one. All right, cool. But other than that, I mean, theoretically, if you to go, I need you to have. If you've been in the finals 10 times, I'm gonna need you to have won 8 of them.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not even gonna tell you need to be perfect like somebody else was.
We won't mention no names.
I mean,
We're not.
everybody can't be perfect, and that's unreasonable to expect you to have been perfect. But out of 10, I'm gonna need you to have gotten 8.
Yeah, because when you say the GOAT and not, because now people using the term the boat, which is best of all time.
Whatever the
I
fuck that means.
I don't know what the fuck that means, but like when
That's some millennial participation trophy shit.
well that's what they, man, don't get me started on these dudes, man. But I'm just saying, like when you say you the GOAT, you crush your competition. Your competition. We're not putting, see, don't get it twisted. I'm not putting LeBron up against Jordan's competition. I'm putting LeBron up against his own era's competition. When you the GOAT, all them dudes need to get crushed. There should never been a chance that Steph Curry wins two out of two back-to-back MVPs if you the GOAT. Now, he's great. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying the term.
Yeah, but I won't go to the MVP argument because the reality is Jordan didn't win the MVP every time, even though he probably should have. So it's arguable that LeBron probably the MVP vote is just one of those things. Like it's arguable that LeBron's the best player in the league most of the times when he plays. So the question is the MVP? But then you got Steve Nash winning that shit back to back. Um, and Kevin Durant's got a claim, I think, to being the best player in the league. So I mean, but the MVP argument isn't necessarily one that I'll hold against LeBron. But as far as accolades and shit like that, I think a lot of his records are longevity records.
Well,
Um,
shit ton. I mean, but that's what happened with Kareem.
right,
You play 23, 25 years, you're gonna collect stats.
right. I mean, shit. Mike took off a couple years. Like, I'm out.
Mike
He
took
came
off a
back.
couple of years. Mike actually was hurt for a year
Mhm.
in when people
In his
go
prime,
in his
early in his prime.
prime. Yeah.
Yeah, like at the
So
beginning of his prime.
they sat him down for
Right.
damn near a year. So
Yeah.
if you give him those 82 games, what the fuck is the difference
Right.
at that point?
Because that's when he was chalking that motherfucker up too. So like his scoring would have been off the chain. And matter of fact, that was around the
Bananas.
time. that was around the time when Doug Collins was out here experimenting with him at point guard and shit.
Hmm.
Because there was like a 10 or 15 game stretch where Jordan averaged a triple double because they had to use him because somebody was injured, and they used him at point guard. That's why I was laughing at people who said that, oh, LeBron, and LeBron is a better playmaker, but Jordan did what he was asked to do. I mean, we've gone off the rails a little bit talking about. See, this is what happens whenever you bring up LeBron. We end up going totally off the
It
rails
is,
talking
and
about
like I say, I got nothing against him. It's just his fucking little fanboys that just be all on Twitter doing dumb shit. You be
right
like,
because to LeBron, he, you know, and when we've had the argument before, like for me, ain't nothing wrong with being number two in the GOAT conversation. I mean, ain't nothing wrong with that. You're just not the best. That's all. Like anybody saying he's trash. Like I'm just
exactly.
saying, look, he second best player all time in my book. I know you got different top five, but um,
Okay, he
we're
passed Kareem. Then I'll start talking about it.
we're gonna leave that alone. So fuck it. Let's jump in. Let's jump into the session. So we talking about conspiracy theories today because Greg and I was just chopping it up, and basically we see you see so much shit on social media now. Like this shit is exhausting to this point. Like people just. So one of the ones I wanted to talk about first, and we were touching on it earlier, was I think COVID basically these we were talking about these vaccinations. Is that what we were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people are out here basically like, well, these vaccinations, you can't trust them. You got folks out here who are saying shit like, well, no, the vaccination basically is a way for the government to put microchips in you. It's a biotechnology that they're using from this military grade technology. I even saw somebody out here who, and this is a brother like, I mean, he's a stand up brother, but he's a part of the nation, and he was out here talking about. Um, he said that he's talking about Operation. What's the name of the operation that they're using to deliver the vaccination? Warp Speed. Operation Warp Speed. He's there. Operation Warp Speed is a military endeavor to. Well, he didn't make this stretch, but I think he was implying that it was an endeavor basically to somehow militarize this vaccination or COVID somehow and apply it to the general population, right? So, all right. I, I get black folks' general reticence to not trust the government when it comes to medical stuff and or vaccinations or putting stuff in your body. There's a valid concern there, right? I mean,
Right.
Tuskegee experiment, whatever you want to talk about, right? Valid, 100%. But what we can't necessarily do is just arbitrarily just say shit because motherfuckers are just saying shit now at this point, like, um, and shit don't even make sense. Like, so you saw Hank Aaron died, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, of course, like whatever time period before this, he had just gotten the first dose of the COVID vaccination. So
Mhm.
now the big thing circulating the internet for some folks is that, oh, see, he died because of the COVID vaccination. He's 86, by the way, but um,
Who
there's
was having failing health before?
well, yeah, right. So
That's what I'm saying.
because there's nothing to indicate that. I mean, from what I've heard, and so some people are saying, well, that's just because they're not spinning it that way and they're not covering it the right way. There's nothing from the family or anybody that indicates that he died from the COVID vaccination. I mean, nothing objective to support it. So, I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, this is based on something in particular, but every time they bring up a particular example of the vaccination of somebody dying, it's usually explainable. Like, usually, A, there's no connection to the vaccination, or B, somebody had an anaphylactic response or they were allergic to the shit, like any other vaccination, right?
Right.
So, and that's what those are concerns you have with any vaccination is whether or not you're allergic to the shit. Okay, so it's just this idea like the shit is not based on science at all, right? So I mean, and we were talking about that earlier as far as like I took a look. I just found myself researching everything, trying to figure out okay, what's the difference between all these vaccinations, whether that be like the Pfizer, the Moderna, the Johnson and Johnson. Matter of fact, somebody just stopped manufacturing the vaccination recently because I guess they shit wasn't working, which tells you that I mean science is science. Like y'all can use these conspiracy theories all you want, but the reality is this: like science is science. Like you can fake science to a certain extent, but there's way to kind of prove certain shit, right? You can read enough shit that makes sense. Like, okay, there's support for that particular strategy, or there's some support for that particular technique or that particular theory. It's been proven or established if you look at the science and the medicine. I mean, people will say dumb shit like, "Well, I don't trust." They're like, "I don't trust the medical establishment's data," or "I don't trust the, I don't trust Pfizer's data or Moderna's data." Like, at some point, you have to rely on data, right? You can't just arbitrarily be like, "I just don't trust it," right?
Well, I was about to say that's all you have is trial and error. And so if you don't have the data to support anything, you don't have shit. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, them the same people that'll fucking pop an Advil.
Right, right. So
So I
well,
mean,
people just their arguments don't make any sense. Like some, so I saw somebody post. I'll just be reading shit now. I just be like, all right, man, like shit's exhausting. So somebody's like, so they posted this shit about either Hank Aaron or somebody else dying after the COVID, taking the COVID vaccination, right? So then somebody who would seem to be reasonable came on like, well, um, I still rather take I still rather take this vaccination. You're talking about one or two people out of millions of people they've given the vaccination to already. Like that's probably within the percentage of folks who potentially would be, vulnerable to this shit. But because of social media, it's accessible to everybody, right? So then the other person comes back like, oh, I thought every life mattered when it came to people dying from COVID. Why all of a sudden, just because it's one person out of millions for dying from the vaccination doesn't matter? Like, y'all can't see the difference between those two arguments. Like, in COVID, there's significant difference between the deaths that we're seeing with COVID versus isolated deaths on the issue of the vaccinations, right?
right.
I mean, it's a pretty big difference. Like, so I mean, so the vaccination was one thing I kind of want to touch on. Just to, okay, and to folks, I want to say to folks like I get the pause, right? I'm not saying you should run out and get the vaccination. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is research the shit for yourself. Like, and by research doesn't mean you looking at somebody else's YouTube link or the new one that I'm seeing circulate now is this brother from the Nation of Islam, not the same cat, but this brother Muhammad. I forget what his first name is. He's talking about he's supposedly talking about the vaccination and the medicine behind it. And so I took a listen to part of it. I haven't had a chance to listen to the full thing, but some of the conclusions he was making, I didn't see any support. Like he wasn't providing like scientific data or proof for what he was saying. He was just saying it, right?
Right.
So you know how that works. So basically, somebody will offer their opinion, and they'll say it in such a way that they present it as fact, right? Without providing any support about what they're talking about. Which I'm not saying the brother doesn't have support for it. All I'm saying is he didn't say anything that established to me that he was saying it from a perspective of straight science or medicine, right? And I
There
don't
was
know him
no
personally.
journal. There was no journal he was reading from, basically.
No, it's just
Okay.
based on his own understanding, so to speak, right? And maybe he's right, maybe he's not. I don't necessarily know, but like I said, I base everything on objective data, right? Because and I get people like, well, you can manipulate data. Well, yeah, you can, of course, unless you're the actual person conducting the testing. You're right. There's certainly some level of trust you have to have for the data, right? But there's some there's some information you can kind of look at like there's no reason to manipulate this data, right?
Well, that the reason I sighed is because I mean, when you start going down that fucking rabbit hole, then you're basically going, don't trust anything, and at that point,
Right.
there's no fucking point for you to be alive. God damn, like great going, Captain Fucking Obvious. Yeah, you can manipulate data. Oh, you're right. Okay, guess what? At the end of the day, if you manipulate data or whatever you call it, somebody's going to find out about it. It may not be an immediate situation, but why are you okay? It's the same argument that they have for they keep saying that every death is COVID. The government is trying to make every death, if you're dying right now, every death is COVID. It is 333 million folks in the United States of America. Approximately 450,000 have died from COVID. How are they trying to make every death in America COVID related?
Right.
The
Well,
math doesn't add up.
So that that's one of the other things I wanted to talk about. But so the idea that COVID and flu are the same thing has been easily debunked since this shit has taken hold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had just looked at the data and I'm gonna try and pull it up again. Like, is a pretty significant difference between the amount of COVID deaths versus the flu deaths in 2020 and to date. So it's clearly way more fatal than the flu. It's um it's shown itself to be way more contagious than the flu. It's just way more problematic than the flu, right? And then more importantly, with the flu, we have vaccinations that are proven that are able to account for multiple different strains of the particular virus because they've been able to study it for multiple years. So you're able to kind of protect yourself from it. I don't take the flu vaccination, but enough people do to the point where we've developed some level of herd immunity to the point where it's not fatal. And that's really your goal with the vaccination is not necessarily to get rid of COVID, is to put it in a position where people aren't dying from the shit. Right.
Right.
So, but it's definitely stop comparing the flu to COVID because it's not the same shit. And the data does not support you when you say it. Like y'all can try and say that shit all day long, but it's not actually true. Like it's just not.
Right.
Like people can you can continue to say it's just not true. Like just look it up. Now people will be like, well, I don't trust CDC data. I don't. I mean, okay. I mean, at that point, yeah, we can't have a conversation if we can't agree on facts, right? I mean,
Or
absent
we
me,
can't even agree on the bare basic minimum. Like
right,
there's certain conversations to be had where you can agree on the bare basic minimum.
right.
1 + 1 = 2. If you like, well, no, technically, see, we can't talk. That's fucking bare basic. That's a conversation that I could have with a goddamn 3-year-old. Like, what the fuck, man? And if you think you're gonna sit here and try to convince me otherwise, A, you got another thing coming, but B, I'll sit there and let you talk. I fuck it. I'll let you talk. But where are you going with it? That's the thing with these conspiracy theories. Where the fuck are you going with it? Because truly, if you take the definition of conspiracy, you got what, three or more, basically
Mm-hmm.
three or more people getting together to do something unlawful or harmful to a group, a person, an organization, or whatever, a country. You got three or more people to sit there and say, hey guys, why don't we do this? So you're trying to tell me three or more people got together and said, you know what would be cool? Fuck up the financial and economic stability of the United States of America
Right.
by getting this fucking disease and spreading it throughout the whole country. Okay, do you agree, Lester? Yes. Do you agree, Bob? Yes. Do you agree, Ryan? Yes. All right, 1, 2, 3, QAnon. Like, what the fuck, man?
Well, I mean, that's because Bill Gates created COVID so he can make money off the vaccination. Greg, obviously.
And he passed it, and he passed it through some monkeys.
That's the hilarious shit to me. Like people are like, yeah, yeah. Bill Gates created the COVID vaccination. Now he's spreading it through the population that didn't originate here in the country. Um, or so there's all types. I mean, there was all types of crazy shit, man. Like social media makes shit spread so easy. Like, do you remember the one where people were saying that 5G towers caused COVID?
Yeah,
I mean, that got so bad that I think in Britain they were burning down 5G towers.
yeah, because people are stupid.
Like that's how crazy. I mean, you want to know how people storm the Capitol? That's how people storm the Capitol. Motherfuckers are burning down 5G towers. Doesn't even. There's no connection between a virus and a 5G tower.
Because people are stupid. Again, it boils down to fear, number one, and who's controlling the fear. And then number two, people are stupid. Like,
Right.
it, it's amazing. It's amazing how you would get somebody who you thought had some form of a clue, and then you realize they ain't got a clue in hell.
Dude, shit is bananas. Like I thought about that today. Like I'll see shit from people like supposedly educated people, right? Like people who
Exactly.
have multiple degrees, and they'll just say some shit. You'd be like, damn, like people are easily just like they say dumb. I'm not gonna say dumb shit. They just say shit
That's all I fuck
that's
with. I'll say
that's
it
not
for you.
sophisticated. Like you're like really like it just say and people just easily manipulated and kind of placated for everything, whether it's politics or anything. Like you just say shit, you be like, really, that's what we're talking about. And like this whole like COVID and vaccination shit, like the shit that's exhausting is the extremes on both sides, right? You
Mhm.
got the extreme folks who are like anti-vaxxers, like, no, I'm not gonna do this shit because it's a ploy to track us and put stuff in our bodies. Like, obviously, vaccinations work on some level because we've been able to curb some significant diseases over the course of you know decades of years, right? So I mean, vaccinations work. I mean, in any other situation, vaccinations were seen as a technological advancement.
Yeah, and I got something for you geniuses who think that the COVID vaccination is tracking you. Your fucking cell phone tracks you, you dumbass.
Right? Like
They
you worrying
f-
about being tracked, like turn that bitch off. And you
and
bet you won't, as
he-
you're on social media.
here's a conspiracy theory for you. You notice that it used to be a time where you could take the battery out your fucking phone. Guess you can't take the battery out anymore. I wonder why. Because they need that bitch to be on to track you. But go ahead. COVID.
No, you're right.
COVID. COVID is tracking you. You right. You a genius. COVID is tracking you. Don't take that vaccine because it's going to implant a chip. Meanwhile, your iPhone has everything that you possibly want on it, possibly need on it, and they will create something to keep you on it. It is studies that say people are looking at their iPhone 7 to 10 hours a day. But go ahead and worry about that damn COVID tracking you. Go right ahead. Fucking geniuses.
Yeah. So I mean, my thing is just basically like just. I mean, you can read some shit. Like, so me and my wife were talking about this before I got on the show. She's like, well, I mean, how else are people going to get information? I mean, not everybody's going to go look at a journal. And I guess I get that, but you can't just arbitrarily say shit just to say shit just because you feel that way, right? And
Right.
present it as fact. Okay. And I get it. I mean, and some people are like, oh, you sound like elitist. Like, oh, everybody got to read a journal. Maybe everybody doesn't have access to a journal. Like, you got access to everything on social media and the internet. Like, there's the access to information is both a gift and a curse these days. It's a gift because you can literally find anything you need from an information perspective. It's a
Mm-hmm.
curse because you have to have the ability to discern what's bullshit and what's not. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the. I mean, it's with great power comes great responsibility type shit. Right. So you have to be able to figure out what the fuck it is that you're taking in and you're processing. But what you can't do is just basically say shit just because it fits your narrative and how you want to approach it. And you're talking to somebody that, by and large, believes, especially when it comes to oppression of people, more specifically Black people. There's no reason why I would believe government over anything. I'm not saying I believe government on any of this shit. I understand why people are cautious about the vaccine because I am. I'm cautious about the vaccine, but I'm cautious for reasons because it seems like just a situation where there's there's issues on all sides, right?
Right.
Like there's potential for side effects for vaccinations, but there's also the potential that you could get COVID and or pass it to a vulnerable population, whether it be somebody in your household or your parents. So from my perspective, eventually I'm probably going to get the vaccination just because, and we've talked about this before, if the risk is just to me versus me passing along something to my family, I'd rather deal with the personal risks to me rather than potentially passing something along to my family. What I guess the flip side that somebody might argue is the vaccination doesn't prevent um,
Your
it
family
doesn't
from
actually
getting it.
prevent transmission. Like so,
Right.
the idea is getting everybody vaccinated, which is why they're starting with older folks, so it doesn't become fatal or they don't catch it. Right. So you can still get it and pass it along, but start. And I guess my argument doesn't really hold water necessarily, but I guess by taking it is my contribution to generally not um, having the symptoms, whether that be like coughing or some other shit, pass it along to somebody. But I don't know. I think we're just going to be in a position where we're probably all wearing masks a lot moving forward anyway.
See,
But
and that's where I don't want to be. I don't want to be in that position of we all are wearing masks and it just becomes second nature for us to wear a mask. I do want to get back to some form of okay, I can walk out my house. Somebody put it on Instagram, and I just thought the shit was funny and shit. They was like, "Fuck raw dog and sex. I want raw air." I was like, that's where we are. That we're at a stage where folks is like, remember when you could just go outside and actually breathe air without a fucking
Right.
mask? And it's fucked up to say that, but that's where we are. So I want to go back to that. And if wearing the mask right now and taking this vaccination gets me back to that, then I'm gonna fucking wear a mask and I'm gonna take the fucking vaccine.
Well, and that's the other thing, the mask thing. That was the other big conspiracy theory. You had motherfuckers out here like, oh, masks don't work, or people who were acting like masks were actually causing health issues. Right? Doesn't even make any sense generally. Right? Their idea was that this mask was preventing so much stuff from coming in that it was forcing CO2 back into your body, thereby making you sick.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. These are the same motherfuckers who sit there and ask if it's okay to take 8 Tylenol in a day.
Right? Like,
And then all of a sudden, you better than Bill Nye the Science Guy, Doogie Howser MD, and all the other medical professionals. You just better than them. And you just know what CO2 is and all types of shit and what levels you need. You're a walking air purifier all of a sudden. Get the fuck out of here, man. Come on. Come on. That's the bullshit I just stare at people. And this is the problem I had ever since I was a little kid. My mother used to say, stop doing that because you make people feel bad. Fuck that. I don't give a shit. You feel bad. Your ass said some dumbass shit. And I'm just gonna stare at you until you realize you said some dumbass shit, or you walk the fuck away from me.
with your dumb ass.
With your dumbass. That it don't make any sense. Because on one side, you're trying to prove that the goddamn shit is not real. So we go, okay, it's not real. It's fucking hoax. All right, walk me through your argument. And in walking me through your argument, you prove that the shit is real and that you're not going to let it dictate how you live your life. The fuck? I refuse to let COVID dictate how I live my life. I live in a free country and blah, blah, blah. So which one is it? Is it real or is it not real? Because now you flipping and flopping. And your argument don't hold water as to why it's a health risk to fucking wear a mask. Somebody told you something that you did not want to do. You, instead of throwing a tantrum, and some of you have thrown a tantrum, instead of throwing a tantrum, you sat there and went to some book and some news article somewhere online. You went to some fucking right wing conspiracy theorist page online and listened to a guy from fucking Alabama, Texas, Florida, or Wyoming tell you how bad this shit is and how the government is trying to force you to do something, and you have an inalienable right in this country to live free and have the pursuit of happiness and all this other shit. And you regurgitated all that shit to your friends, your family, your neighbors, and anybody who's sitting on the fucking bus with you. And then on top of it, once you finally got people to sit there and go, yeah, yeah, you right. You right. That's really what's happening. You start putting that shit in print to get other motherfuckers to believe it.
Right.
And it's all bullshit to begin with.
Well, with things like COVID, like people are like, "Oh, I got my right to do what I want to do." Yeah, you do, but when what you want to do affects everybody else, then that's when your shit starts getting regulated some level, right?
Right.
Like there's some shit you can't just do on your own, right? You can't just you can't just pour toxic waste down your drain, right? You can't do that, right?
This is America.
Let's say you had access to toxic waste.
This is
You
America.
can't do
I can do what I want. It's
it.
America.
Doesn't make sense because you're endangering other people. Like when you're when your actions start to infringe on the health and ability of other folks to live freely, and it doesn't outweigh that particular ability of those folks, then yeah, your shit's going to be somewhat restricted, right? It's not going to
Right.
be prevented, but it's going to be restricted. Okay, so I mean, on some level, there's going to be some basic contract that we have where we all agree on some shit, right? And that goes for everything. I mean, that's why we have moral codes and morality. I mean, there's legit people out here who believe that adults having relationships with children is perfectly normal, right? There's
Wow.
people out there like that. There's people out there like that who think that that's perfectly acceptable, and then you hear shit like that from time to time. So what if we were like them people were like, well, that's me pursuing my freedom to do what I want to do. Like if that don't make any fucking sense, does it? Like
These
that,
same people will be the first ones to be like, fuck that.
right? That don't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like there's a certain baseline we have of morality. Now I get that. I would argue that I was going to say, has our morality changed over the years? I don't think our morality has changed. I think that we have ignored our morality in certain circumstances, whether that be slavery or Holocaust or whatever it is, internment camps. Like we've ignored morality. I don't think morality has changed. Morality basically fundamentally says you treat people well and treat people fairly, right?
Well, I was going to say I was going to say that we have ignored the punishments for uh indiscretions and going against our morality. It used to be a time where people will basically scare you, and this is not getting into philosophy here, but people would basically scare you into being moral because some believe that inherently you are immoral to begin with, and you have to face consequences to see the morality in your actions. So for I'll use the example for black folks. Basically, we've been getting our ass kicked so long. Okay, there we know the difference of consequences for our actions. We may believe that we are equal and we're human beings and all that other great shit, but the reality to it is we know we can't go in 1966 in fucking Mississippi and say, hey, we are fucking human beings and you need to sit your ass down and quit punishing us, because we know the consequences for saying something like that would be death. We
Right.
know what will fucking happen to us, even though the other thing is true. So I say what happened was white folks ain't been getting fucked up for the shit they've been doing, and I think they've been forgotten, lost their way a little bit, and I don't know if we're in a moral society anymore. Everything is
Right.
justifiable.
No, I feel you.
Yeah, that's I mean I just think that's where we are.
Well, speaking of morality, you kind of in passing mentioned it earlier. I know you want to kind of jump on this. Is it QAnon? Like, is that the fuck you say it?
Yeah.
What the fuck it is? Like, so
Yeah. I'm
because
sorry, this tickles me.
speaking of morality, and like, it's just it's when bullshit becomes mainstream, basically, right? Because it to a certain extent, it's not that it's become mainstream, but this QAnon shit has become almost like a political ideology. You know what I'm saying?
We
Like,
have United States senators and Congress
yeah,
folks
like I think it's a
who believe it.
chicken Georgia, right? The seat out there in Georgia. What's her name? Marjorie
Marjorie
Taylor
Green.
Greene.
Yeah, Marjorie Green.
So I'll let you jump in there first. I mean, the
Well,
shit's kind of I hadn't paid too much attention to it. I had kind of heard about it, and I didn't, I don't really give too much time or energy to that bullshit. But I went ahead and read some of it. Like them motherfuckers are batshit crazy.
well,
But
then what it is basically a group of people believing that there is a bunch of Satan worshipers and fucking pedophiles running the U.S. government, and they are all conspiring against former President Trump, and Trump was supposedly wait, this shit gets funny. Trump was
this shit's just
supposed
hilarious that the shit that they're saying, like these other people are the immoral people, but the motherfucker who said grab him by the pussy, he's the one that's being attacked for his morality. But
Right.
go ahead.
He's being
That's
attacked
fine.
for his morality because he's going against these Satan worshipers and the cabal, and he's going to bring truth to power and righteousness back. And they're all after him. Yeah, all these pedophiles and Satan worshipers in the United States government and in the media and entertainment, they all want the morale of Trump to suffer and fall. That's what these motherfuckers believe.
Yeah. So shit's hilarious. Like, and it's almost it's funny, but it's scary because that some of these motherfuckers are actually gaining traction. So basically, one of the main things they believe is that there's a global child sex trafficking ring, right? In which that may not necessarily be untrue, right? I mean, child trafficking is an issue we need to deal with and address, obviously, and pay attention to, because kids are being missing. I mean, kids are going missing every day, especially in the hood, which is an underreported issue. But that's another topic for another day.
Right.
But where it goes off the rails is that at some ring, and typically these are conservatives who are saying liberals um, are the main boogeyman when it comes to this stuff. So I mean, they'll say shit like President Obama, Hillary Clinton, Tom Hanks, Bill Clinton. Basically, I read some shit where they believe that these people not only rape children, but they kill them and then they eat their victims in order to ingest something called adrenochrome, which is basically a chemical which people allege is an age-defying effect, right? So this is the type of shit these motherfuckers actually believe in. So these are people that actually got elected, which tells you that there's a bunch of dumb motherfuckers out here who actually voted for their ass and think that this shit's legitimate.
Yeah. And that's the scary part. So you got Marjorie Green sitting here. She fucking what she do? Write articles of impeachment for fucking Biden already. She's gonna present articles of impeachment
For what?
for a guy who's been on the job not even
Right.
7 fucking days yet.
Right. For
Not
what?
even, not even 7 days. You're gonna write articles of impeachment. And you motherfuckers out there sitting here supporting a dumbass and believing it's okay
Yeah.
and right to do.
I'm about to who what is the 14th congressional district in Georgia? I'm about to look that shit up and see what city that is. And you want to wipe a city off the map, that might be one. Let me
Seriously,
see. Let me see.
seriously. I'm you know what? I'm all for everybody having a voice to a degree. Here you go. You
We
know,
already know Greg doesn't believe some of y'all should vote.
yeah,
So
I don't believe some of y'all dumbasses should vote. I don't care about the litmus test y'all try to give black folks to prevent us from voting. Turn that shit right around on y'all. Some of y'all motherfuckers should not have the right to vote because of shit like this. Clearly you need to be locked in a fucking insane asylum somewhere and getting shock treatment somewhere. So because your brain don't work. It don't work like it's supposed to.
right.
Something's wrong. You need help. What I
Well,
don't need is for you to be out there in the public spewing your shit, affecting my life with your dumb shit. Like old girl from fucking Colorado who sat there and said, "Well, I'm just gonna take my piece onto the floor of the Capitol because I have a Second Amendment right to bear arms." Heifer, your Second Amendment right has restrictions in certain fucking places. So I take it you're gonna take your shit to a school too.
right.
I'm like,
Yeah, we
Betsy
need like
DeVos. Where was it? Oh, yeah. Man, fuck her.
well, so real quick, so you were talking about governors, and as you said that, it triggered something in my mind.
Yeah.
So you know who's running for governor in Arkansas, right?
No.
Just announced today.
Who?
Your boy Trump's former White House press secretary Sanders, the chick. She
Huckabee's
announced today.
daughter.
Yep. She's running for governor of Arkansas. She might win Arkansas, shit, because I think
No.
Trump won Arkansas by like shit. I mean, a lot.
She won't win Arkansas. There's two things I know why
Why?
she
Because
won't.
she's a woman.
Number one, yes. See, they
They like
tell on
we ain't vote.
themselves.
Yeah, we ain't vote for no woman.
Exactly. They tell on themselves, number one. Number two, there's still a political machine associated to Arkansas that would prevent her from winning in Arkansas. Ooh, conspiracy theorist, political machine. I'm just
Nah,
saying she
man.
won't win in Arkansas. She can run all she wants. She won't win in Arkansas.
But this QAnon shit is just I hadn't really paid much attention to it. Like I think you had brought it up, but there's just some interesting shit. Like them motherfuckers is certifiably crazy. Like
The
um,
guy, what's his name? The guy, shit, I can't think of his name. It just dropped out of my head. The guy with the fucking horns on his head,
who
and
what?
uh, the
Oh, the guy from
insurrectionist.
the
Yeah,
insurrection.
yeah, the insurrectionist. He had the horns on his head. He's like a big like QAnon online type dude. Like
Of course he
that.
is.
That's his
Of course,
deal. You
of
know,
course he
that's
is.
his deal. So like they
Well,
believe
the
wholeheartedly.
the irony is they use this QAnon shit to dismiss legitimate uh movements like Black Lives Matter. Like they use that to say, oh, that's just a liberal conspiracy theory to create dissension amongst the people. Like that's how bad it is. Like, yeah. So we're supposed to believe that Black Lives Matter isn't a real thing, but these liberal politicians and entertainers are raping children and eating their victims in order to become younger.
And Black Lives Matter is bad. Like their whole organization is horrible and bad. That's what they want us to believe. The same way,
Shit.
the same way they wanted us to believe the Panthers were bad.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I mean, I,
You
I
say
mean,
Black Panther to a person, a white person that's probably in their
oh yeah,
late 50s or
oh
early
yeah.
60s. Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Never mind the fact that they set up food programs, and his primary goal was making sure that folks in poverty had access to certain resources that they couldn't typically get. And ironically, what's even more interesting is that Black Panthers are basically what white folks like to tell black folks they should be doing, right?
Yeah.
So taking care of yourself. They're talking about supporting the Second Amendment and
Self-sufficient.
self-sufficient, right? So they're developing their own social programs, so they don't have to rely on government programs. The same social programs that you want to get rid of as entitlement programs. Now you mad at the Black Panthers for basically wanting to do all that because they were propagandized as basically a drug organization or a crime organization.
Yeah, yeah. So
I mean, it's not a surprise. I mean, I don't want to sit here. I think that somehow I'm surprised that these racist white folks think that, but you know, it's just it doesn't even follow logic, which tells me a lot of times that this shit is intentional, right? It's all propaganda, them trying to manipulate folks. Like, you know, it can't be shit they actually believe. Sometimes they got to be doing it for the purposes of trying to make sure they consolidate power.
and that's where the conspiracy theorists get confused and they go, "This is what we're trying to say. It's all propaganda." Okay, but you just walked up out of your local YMCA with a pamphlet that says that President Trump is trying to defeat the Satanists. Like, what part don't you understand?
And motherfuckers don't make sense. Like, I mean, you talk about conspiracy theories. You talk about the biggest one they've been talking about lately since Trump lost the election. Somehow the election was rigged and stolen. Never mind the fact that a number of Republicans who weren't expected to win won down ticket. So the logic doesn't even follow reason. If that makes sense. But
It doesn't
um,
follow reason whatsoever because if you think about it, once I say, this is how I figure this is going to work. In about 6 months, he's going to be heavily marred in lawsuits, especially from the state of New York. And about a year from now, uh, I would say they're going to be going after his financials. Maybe 2 years from now, right in time for the midterm elections, he would possibly get convicted on something from one of these damn lawsuits and one of these charges. By that time, he would have turned his back on the Republican Party to the point in which that they're all sitting there wondering what the fuck happened. And the funny part is, give or take, if it's beneficial to him, he will return back to the Democratic Party. Not that the party that will let him back in. I'm saying if it's beneficial to him, he'll figure out a way to sit there and side with Democrats against Republicans. And they'll all be sitting there going, what the fuck happened? I don't get it. What you don't understand is a con man is a con man is a con man. He will con you the same way he will con somebody else. And all these people have said this dude is a con man. Even when he was a Democrat, they said this dude was a con man. And you don't believe it. You believe he's the second coming of Christ and he's got the power of Christianity and everything else behind him. And he's going to fix everything and he's going to save America.
Right. Yeah, people are just, let's keep it real. People are dumb as fuck.
As
Mm,
fuck.
like real talk. Like, and the shit is super exhausting. I mean, and like we wanted to have some fun with this episode today, and we will. We'll talk about some other shit real quick, because we want to jump into some fun conspiracies. But
Like aliens and shit.
aliens who killed Biggie and Tupac. Um,
Here go. That ain't no conspiracy. That nigga did.
yeah, yeah.
Here
Well,
go.
because
Let them tell it. That who did that? That nigga
Well,
did.
because there were a bunch of all them fucking TV series that were coming out like that. Basically, nobody they never came to a conclusion. Like bottom line is some undercover cop shit and some street shit basically, and shit just got out of hand basically. And motherfucker who ended up think killing Biggie and or Tupac, they just saying they ain't around either. So, um,
Here go the Lee Harvey Oswald of the situation.
right.
I mean, if we want to talk conspiracy theory, that's the only
So
one that I still believe.
yeah, so yeah,
Yeah,
fuck it. Let's talk about it. So
yeah.
Kennedy assassination. I mean, it's a dated conspiracy theory, but real talk, you're right. Like, because that's the only one that there's actually support. I think, matter of fact, there was a case. I think it's a civil case by the family where it was actually found that the government had a role in conspiring to kill John F. Kennedy. Like it was actual legal finding that occurred.
Well, I've always, and I for some reason I was fascinated with Kennedy as a child, as far as because I read a lot and I started reading real young. I would read all these fucking history books. That's what got me into public policy. But I would read all these fucking history books, and I always thought it was fascinating how the leader of the free world, which I understood as a 8-year old, the president of the United States is the leader of the free world. How the leader of the free world could be in Texas, in his homeland, and be killed, and no one knows who did it. That always fascinated me. So as I got older and all those fucking movies came out and all those goddamn documentaries came out, I will watch each and every last one of them. Every last one of them. And you had the Grassy Knoll conspiracy. You had all this shit.
Yeah,
But
they're just. I mean, even just looking at the objective data of the actual video, like the if you understand anything about ballistics and having doing a lot of police shooting cases, I talked to a lot of ballistics experts.
yeah,
Just the physics of everything, how it went down, it just didn't make sense that the shot would have come from where it came from if it was Lee Harvey Oswald. Like it clearly involved multiple shooters, and if there's
yes,
multiple shooters, there's a conspiracy.
correct. There's your three.
You know what I'm saying? So and basically, it appeared to be more like triangulation. So, you had that movie JFK, which obviously is Oliver Stone, but it's based on a real trial. Okay, so and that's what we're talking about. Where there's actually a legal finding that the United States government had a role in killing John F. Kennedy, and it's probably related to some sort of military-industrial complex sort of issue because they're still pissed off about the Bay of Pigs and all that type of shit, and then
Mm-hmm.
Cuban
Cold
Missile
War.
Crisis. But you're right. That's that is a legitimate conspiracy theory, so to speak. That, but it makes sense, right? Because it's not a conspiracy theory that's totally out of whack because it's based on politics, right? It's based on politics and power.
Hmm.
So whenever you talk about politics and power, people get killed all the time.
Oh, very much so.
And I think what's interesting is so that's another part as far as Trump being president. I was surprised, like if the president really has access to all this information, I was surprised he didn't declassify a bunch of shit just to be petty. Like that's what tells me either a that's why I know there's no aliens because Trump would have released that shit. He would have. He's that
Wait,
petty. He'd have been like, yeah, hey y'all, look. He absolutely would release that shit
here
if he
you
knew
go.
that
There
shit.
are aliens, and you can see them at my casino and hotel
Right.
in Vegas.
Right. Yeah, he gonna hold out till he can make money off it. Probably right.
That's what I was about
Maybe
to say. He's gonna
maybe he'll
make
put
money.
that in his memoirs. We'll see.
Well, it's gonna be hard for him to even get a fucking library, truthfully. So, I mean, right now, he's on track to being like Nixon, and it, and it it's funny how time will tell. But what gets me is there's a lot of people on the wrong side of this right now that are doubling down,
Right.
and history is going to prove that they're on the wrong side of it. And I just don't know what you do. Like, I don't know what you do with that, because you're going to indoctrinate your grandkids, and if not already your kids,
Mhm.
with being on the wrong side of this. Like, if you're an insurrectionist that showed up on January 6th, you are on the wrong side of history. There's nothing you could do to take that back except for take your punishment. And I'm all for each and every last one of you getting the harshest punishment possible, only because if my black ass was up there and did it, that's what you would sit there and do. You would sit in a jury box and you would convict me.
Right.
So I'm all for it. If you fucking go to jail for 5 years, 10 years, 3 years mandatory, I don't give a shit. And quite frankly, you lose your right to fucking vote. You lose your right to hold a gun and own a gun. Like, all the shit that you care about is going to get taken away from you. That is what punishment should be. That type of shit. So if it's 100 of you or 6,000 of you, maybe if this happens, folks will think twice about being fucking idiots. It's
Right.
one thing to say that shit down in your basement. That's your fucking right. That's your fucking home. There's your freedom of speech. It's another thing for y'all to get in the cars, planes, trains, and go to the goddamn Capitol and try to execute that shit.
I still can't get over the fact that there were members of Congress who actually gave reconnaissance tours to these motherfuckers, and we're not over here talking about getting them the fuck out of the government.
They're fucking traitors to the United States, and they need to be
That shit's
fucking
bananas to me.
removed.
Like that somehow that's acceptable. Like, all right. I mean, then you got these hypocrites like Mark Rubio, because I can remember during the Benghazi shit, Rubio was one of the main people talking about, oh, this isn't about politics. This is about the safety of our diplomats. Blah 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 blah. Now he over here talking about this shit for the impeachment for Trump. Like, why do we have to worry about this, guys? He's gone. There's no need. It's not necessary. This is like you can't abandon the logic now because it doesn't benefit you, right? Like,
Well, that's exactly what he's going to do. And what's fucked up about it is they believe people have short memories. Well, let me back that up. Republicans seem to have short memories.
right. And
Them-
what's amazing is they have a short memory from something that happened weeks ago.
yeah.
Like all of a sudden, like legitimately, the more distance they get on the Capitol insurrection, they basically have become more comfortable with the idea and the concept of it to the point where they don't feel the need to go in on. They were super indignant right away, but the more distance they've gotten on, they're like, it's okay, we're good.
What did they do to Hillary Clinton, um, in her what's it called, deposition?
Uh,
Um,
Testimony
what's
before
testimony?
the
Yeah, her testimony before the committee. Didn't they
congressional committee.
didn't they go 14 hours without a break.
Yeah, like they went in on Hillary over the
14 hours
Benghazi shit.
without a break. The heifer couldn't even pee
Right.
on some shit. Oh, it's serious. Don't get me wrong. Benghazi was serious, but they went 14 hours. This is the United States Capitol when Congress is in session
On our physical soil. Now
on our soil.
I understand that all consulates are considered American soil, but it's different. I mean, it's still overseas. Like we're talking about in the heart of where our government is run.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So,
I got a question for you. So talking about conspiracies, where do you where did you stand on 9/11? So, because you remember that big thing that was circulating on the internet at the time, and a lot of people say this was like the beginning of like social media propaganda and all that type of shit. That loose change video where they basically went through the shit and said that there's no way. First of all, they said metal doesn't burn at certain degrees, and that the way the World Trade Center came down was more of a demolition style than it was of planes running into it.
so let's get into 9/11. I'm gonna have to start off by saying I remember 9/11.
Where were you?
Oh, um,
2001. Yeah.
yeah, I was in Hillenbrand.
I was about to say so we were
I,
both at Purdue. We were both at Purdue. I was on my way to work. I was working at the Circuit City out there in Lafayette. And
yeah,
that was the same day that because that was the same day the blueprint came out, and I was excited about buying that shit.
hell yeah. So let's start there. The blueprint came out that day.
Yeah.
I had already no, I had already
Don't get
done the
yourself in
midnight sale.
trouble.
Well, I
Like
was for
I had already downloaded it off LimeWire
no,
and Napster.
I actually went to Vaughn's on the midnight sale.
All right.
So I had already had freaking like 8 hours with it. uh I mean, I listened to that damn thing all night
All
long.
day, all day. Like I think I listened to that shit every day for the next 2 months.
Yeah, like I had really so let's start there. But okay, so what it was, truthfully, when it happened, I was at work at the Hall of Music, and I remember being in the green room, and they were discussing. I don't know. What I can't remember is which news broadcast, but they were discussing the first plane
Okay.
and the way they were talking about it. They were basically they made it sound like some fucking idiot crashed into the side of the building. Like they weren't up in arms about it. They were just like, this is an accident. At that time, they didn't even know like what size plane or style plane, because the first one hit and nobody really understood.
Right.
As they were talking about it,
The second one came through.
the second one came through, and the first thing I sat there and said is, that shit's on purpose. And I said it out loud. And
Mm.
everybody in the room went, well, what's going on? I was like, that's on purpose. And the narrative quickly changed on the news.
Mm.
And I was like, guess what? We are under attack. And I don't know who, but we're under attack. And I kid you not, the people in the room were just staring at me like, A, why the fuck are you so calm about this? But B, where the fuck did that come from? Because once the second one hit and it was live on air, I was like, okay, that's on purpose. That meant to happen. If the first one hit that one and the second one hit that one, something's going on. And then that's when all the reports started coming out within 15, 20 minutes. And the first thing I did was I got on my phone to call and check on my son, because at the time my wife and I weren't married.
Mm-hmm.
We were still dating, and at that time that was probably one of the off and ons. That's probably one of the offs. So
Right.
I called to check because I sat there and said, okay, what major areas in this country, if they're hitting New York, they're going to hit Chicago and they're going to hit LA. Like
Mm-hmm.
in my head, I'm like going for the people. Now, Fast forward to now, I'm a firm believer. If it was all about the people, they would have showed up on goddamn Saturday at the big house. They would
Mm-hmm.
have got 100,000 easily.
Right.
So it's not about the people. So
Right.
going backwards, um, I sat there and called, and the fucking cell phones didn't work. Cell phones, like
Right.
they had jammed the lines.
Right.
So you couldn't call anybody. So I'm like, oh, I'm freaking out because my fucking cell phone. So this is back in the day, folks. So you kids nowadays on your cell phone, if they want to turn your shit off, they can
They do,
turn your shit off.
and they do that. Police do that regularly with hostage standoffs. Like so,
Oh yeah,
they'll shut down the local towers, and you won't be able to make any calls in or out. So,
right.
I was like I said, I was on my way to work. Um, we were living over in University Commons out
Mm.
there. Um, and I was on my way to work, and like somebody had called while I was in the car, and then when I got to work, everybody was like, I worked at Circuit City at the time. Everybody was just around the TV, like just watching, like, and nobody came in the store. I mean, it was just a eerie feeling. So like people got off. I remember everybody was going to get gas and shit. Like for some reason, whenever shit goes down, people always want to go get gas
Oh,
because
they
they always.
ran to the goddamn gas station. They
So
fucking ran. And oh, let's talk about that for a second. Motherfuckers was gouging the shit out of gas.
yeah, it was.
Gas in Lafayette, when that shit happened by fucking 3:30 that day, gas was like $8
Hmm.
at certain gas stations.
Shit was crazy. So I mean, so before we had the show, I was looking at some stuff. So I remember I saw that Loose Change documentary, and I'll be candid, it is it's a fairly provocative documentary. It attempts to it puts a lot of stuff in question until like it didn't age well because they were able to establish a lot of stuff just wasn't accurate or true. Like one of the
Mhm.
things they talked about was United 93 and how they thought that that plane was actually shot down by a jet rather than having been
Being
brought down
taken.
because yeah.
Right.
So and they were making a bunch of arguments that they saw bodies in like a lake that was miles away. The idea was that it was shot down, and the way the debris was, it didn't support a claim that it crashed. But somebody has done, retroactively taken a look at it, and some of the stuff didn't hold up. Like some of the stuff they were saying in the Loose Change documentary would just wasn't simply just wasn't true, right?
Right.
So
And I think that also was based on the fact of what our normal protocol is in this country. It's restricted airspace. Number
mhm.
one, it's restricted airspace. So any unauthorized, I'm just going to use the term flying object, any unauthorized flying object right now, in a situation like that, in a restricted airspace, they're supposed to shoot it down before it gets over major civilian population.
Well, I'm not, but United they didn't get shot down though.
No, I know
So
they did. I'm saying
uh,
that's what they were trying to.
oh right,
That's what
right,
they were
yeah.
trying to basically lean towards.
Right, and so and they were also saying that oh, what was the point I was just trying to make? Fucking
I
alcohol.
mean, because you can listen to the black box on United 93.
Right,
They
right,
the fucking passengers took the fucking shit back.
yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. So
Um, but it is what, because I think one of the other issues was they people were like, well, we saw another plane in the sky at the same time. Turns out that that was a verified plane from some other business that happened to be flying in the area at the same time that they were able to establish exactly who it was. But you can
because they
understand
got the
in
flight log on that one.
right,
Yeah,
like so you can understand the chaos of it, but it was a pretty compelling. I don't know if you ever saw the documentary. Like one of the things that I thought was compelling at the time was this idea of how the how the towers went down, and it did have the impression that it went down in a very controlled fashion, right? Controlled manner as far as looking like it might be demolition because they slowed it down and they tried to show where you saw explosions all the way down, like explosion, explosion,
right.
explosion,
Like
explosion.
charges going off.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, but that doesn't seem to support. It doesn't seem to age well because I mean, I guess it doesn't mean much. But Bin Laden did take credit for that shit. I guess it's entirely possible that terrorists could just simply take credit for some shit that they didn't actually do just to get some credibility for it. But I don't know. I mean, what's your position? You think 9/11 happened because some terrorists had you know enough organization to make it happen, or do you think the government had a hand in it?
I'm on. I'm not. I won't say I'm on the fence about the government having
Oh shit!
a hand in it. I won't say I'm on the fence about the government, but I'm more to believe a level of incompetence
Like they knew about some shit and didn't follow through on
and didn't
enough
follow
leads.
through because they did not think that the intelligence they received warranted that. Like, I do believe they found out some shit and they were like, oh, the motherfuckers ain't got that type of power. It's that type of shit. And then once they realized how many different people were involved in it when they started doing their investigations, and they went, oh, fuck, we fucked up. That's
I
what
could
I believe.
I could see. I don't necessarily believe that the government itself brought down the towers. I'm not going to say that,
Right.
but I can see a an aspect of the kind of the military side of the government basically seeing that that shit might be happening and saying we're going to turn a blind eye to it so it'll allow us to get into a war in the Middle East so we can then take control of oil out there like
Well, yeah.
Carl
If
Rove and them and Dick Cheney.
Because if
Like,
it's strategic, if you're playing chess,
right.
then the
I
towers are the pawns.
Yeah, well, because I can see them being like, well, nobody says that outwardly or overtly, like we're about to let thousands of people die, right?
Right.
But for folks who simply crave power, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Especially when you black in America, you'd certainly believe that shit. Like the
Right.
idea that they'd be like, you know what, we could let this shit happen, um, and then we'll have a reason to go into the Middle East, go into Iraq, and then go into Afghanistan and
We would
take a shot at this shit.
we would have retribution and righteousness on our side.
Right. Nobody's gonna say shit.
Yeah.
And then they didn't. Nobody said shit. Like everybody was super indignant right after that. Um, I mean, but
The
I think
same people who hate New York was loving New York then.
I think what gave it credit. I think what gave the conspiracy theory credibility was the fact that when they said they had weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and then it turns out they didn't. I think that's the shit that people are like, oh shit, like, and so I mean, that is government manipulation, right? I mean, either that's poor intelligence or that's manipulation. It could be definitely poor intelligence. I know Obama talks about that when it came to I think Afghanistan or I forget which one he was talking about, but they were talking about information they had that some shit was about to go down somewhere, but they wanted to make sure they didn't run into the same shit
Right.
from the Iraq shit where they presented this shit to the United Nations and basically it was they set Colin Powell up to look like an idiot because he's over here like, oh, there's definitely weapons of mass destruction and never found that shit. So
Right.
I can certainly see a situation where government was like, we have some interests we want to be able to advance in certain areas of the region. Therefore, we're gonna, we'll do our best. We might somebody might say, I'm gonna turn a blind eye to this shit, but it probably was some level of combination of incompetence and that.
Yeah, that's how I view it, and it's if that's the case, it's tragic that that
Yeah,
level of incompetence led to that. But like you said, if Karl Rove and fucking Cheney was sitting there going, this could be beneficial.
yeah, because them was some evil motherfuckers. Like those two, like absolutely, I think that's something they like. It doesn't have to be a significant group of folks. It could be a group of like, ironically, three or four.
Yeah.
Be like, this how, and for somebody like Bush too, who's easily manipulated, like
Well, that's what I was about to say. Let me ask you that. I was going to say, do you think he was on the end, or do you think they sat there and said, leave him out? And
so the thing that gives me pause on Bush is his daddy's involvement in the CIA, right?
he
So
ran the CIA.
right, so
He
um,
fucking
so
ran it.
that's the shit that kind of gives you pause. Sometimes you're like, well, shit, it's fucking daddy, like.
Yeah.
You know?
He was the
So,
director of that bitch. So
but then he just never came across as a smart, as the sharpest tool in the shed, which leads me to believe that he was basically a Manchurian candidate, right?
hmm
Um, like
hmm
easily controlled and manipulated in order to kind of push certain agendas in the region
so
or just across the.
when he got up there and he sat there and said, "We're gonna get him," that was legitimate. That was coming from the heart.
Yeah.
Him not knowing all the things that was going on
Or
behind the
when they set
scenes.
him up and he said mission accomplished and shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's some shit Obama never would have done, right? Because Obama's smart. He knows he was the type of president he was just super smart. Like so, he's the type of president that knew how to kind of process information. Like, okay, I know when what you're feeding me is bullshit, and I'm gonna take a look at it. I'm
Right.
gonna be able to decipher it.
Right.
Bush doesn't strike me as this type of motherfucker who would be able to decipher bullshit. Like he would trust 100% the people around him. Like so, if Cheney or Rove told him some shit, he'd be like, "All right, if y'all say so, cool."
I trust you. Yeah. I trust you. This is my team. These are my
Right,
guys.
right.
My guys wouldn't set me up. Yeah, he would.
Speak. Speaking of Bush, like, does it make does it make anybody else uncomfortable how how much some time and distance on a motherfucker's legacy changes shit? Like how all of a sudden now, like all these memes about him, and I want somebody to love me the same way George Bush loves Michelle Obama and shit. Like
Well,
all of a sudden now, like motherfuckers talk about Bush too in like some level of reverence. I'm like, hold on, y'all. Like it's the same motherfucker that significantly dropped the ball on Katrina, um, who made a number of shit. His Department of Justice was historically oppressive against black folks when it came to police violence and things of that nature. Like, have we?
he allowed the Supreme Court to gut the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, like
That
have
was
we
under his
forgotten?
administration.
But motherfuckers have forgotten that shit quick. Like all because he probably got some mammy fetish for Michelle Obama. I mean, real talk. Like I'm not shit. Never makes me comfortable and shit. Like I'm be like, first of all, like I'm gonna be like Barack, if you'll slap the fuck out of him, he says some white like that. Like
So mammy, he said so mammy.
yeah, like I'm not saying Michelle looked like it, but you know how white dudes are when it
I
comes
know,
to
yeah,
packing.
yeah. I
You know,
got
like
what you were saying. It's just the fact that you could picture this old dude sitting there like, I
yeah,
just
like
love
because
beach.
he always looking for like where Michelle at. Like you know,
Oh my
sit your
god!
old ass down. Ain't nobody got time for that, man. Like for real.
But see, and there's and that's what happens though. Also, there's a level of as a person ages and they had edge to them, and that testosterone leaves them,
Mhm.
and they get older, they become in the eyes of everyone else, they become just a jovial old character. People are like looking at him in this jovial manner.
Yeah, and so I guess I get the idea that when you're confronted with a motherfucker like Trump who doesn't respect any institution of government at all, right?
Right,
That
right,
somehow a former president that at least respects the institution and the process and the transition of power, no matter how crazy the shit was, it makes him come across as reasonable. It's the reason why people can look at John Kasich in a way and act like somehow he's some moderate all of a sudden because he pushed back against a fucking narcissistic psychopath, right?
right.
Like, like in juxtaposition to Trump, everybody seems fucking reasonable, right? Like so, I
Yeah.
mean, like people forget that Kasich is the same motherfucker in Ohio that basically, broke apart unions, and he's the one that shut down the rail system idea that would have connected all the cities in Ohio and would have created jobs for all types of poor black folks in the state. Like that's the same motherfucker, y'all. Like it's the same person that y'all over here talk like that's the same motherfucker that's now being asked to speak at the Democratic convention and shit.
Which goes to show you how bad Trump really is, for folks to sit here and go, this guy's not too goddamn bad. I like John Kasich. Like that shows you how fucking bad Trump is. That you're comparing folks that you would normally go, no, that guy is a piece of shit. You're comparing him to Trump and going, but if I was shit, I would like to be the shit he is. He's not diarrhea. Like you're actually making these fucking justifications and comparisons because
Yeah,
of how bad that person is.
I guess generally my overall point is that you can be critical of Trump without accepting this bullshit from other motherfuckers who have been historically on that bullshit too, just not to the same level of bullshit that Trump is, right?
What
Like,
what what gets me is the defenders of him.
right.
The defenders of Trump. You're saying, oh, you guys, the liberals are attacking him. The media is attacking him. The motherfucker wakes up every day and goes, uh, you know, I actually made the sun come up and I did it better than the
Yeah,
last person. He starts the shit, and the first thing you do is go, well, you're attacking him. Like, what the
yeah.
fuck?
Trump is just dude. So he was super ridiculous. Like, he absolutely would say that's absolutely some shit he would say. Yeah, I've today I actually made the Earth revolve around the sun. Nobody's done it like me. I've
No,
done it. I've done it bigger and greater than everybody else.
I've done it more bigly
Uh,
than
yeah, Bigley was
anybody.
like this non-talking motherfucker. Like I've never seen ignorance celebrated so much by folks, and maybe it's because it humanizes the presidency, and somehow it makes them feel like I can be president because I don't know how to talk or spell, and he can't either. So therefore, I can get there as soon as I get my millions of dollars, which I probably never get because you're a hillbilly that's never gonna be able to make that happen.
Well, I mean, I am going to get my millions of dollars as soon as I get these goddamn immigrants from
Right.
taking my
Yeah.
job.
Right.
Yeah,
The job you don't want.
right.
The
You're,
one that they willing to hustle for they'll work for pennies on the dollar, but whatever, like it is what it is.
the
And
job
y'all
that's
want
above
and,
you.
and y'all want to support Republicans who don't want to raise the minimum wage because that's gonna keep small business from growing. That doesn't make sense, but okay.
It doesn't make sense at all, and I just want to let you know you're dumb as fuck for sitting here believing that You know what? It is disrespectful. Number one, to sit here and tell somebody who's been working for I don't know 10, 15, 20 years, a skilled laborer. It's disrespectful to tell them that you will pay them a minimum of seven fucking dollars. That's just disrespectful.
Right.
I'm sorry. That is. The
Well, they
shit is,
raising it to they raising it to 880 in Ohio, man. So what do you want? What more do you want, Greg?
I mean, 880. Oh, well, fuck it. Never mind it. Fuck what I said. A whole 880? That's like, 20 cents off of nine.
And
It,
real quick before we start closing this shit out, like so I've talked about this before. I want to get back to like the whole stimulus package shit. Like these motherfuckers, you realize these motherfuckers are still debating whether or not they're gonna give motherfuckers more money. Like they're out here talking about they're still trying to tie it to vaccinations and still trying to tie it to like, well, we want to make sure certain people don't get it. We want to make sure the people who need it get it, which sounds good, right? Sounds good that you don't want certain people. You know what? But you know what? I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck if people who are wealthy get it. Which even though the reality is you won't get it if you're wealthy, because I think there's a cutoff of 75,000 or something like that. Which
yeah,
seventy-five
it's
thousand in this
72 for
economy
a
ain't
single.
wealthy. Yeah.
I was about to say
So
72 for single and then 150 for
and
joint.
that's before your taxes. Like so that's not
Right,
even your take home, right? So
right.
that's I don't give a fuck if motherfuckers who are making 72,500 72 whatever gross. I don't care. Like I don't care if they get fuck it. They need it. I don't give a shit. Like what you're not about to do is sit here and debate whether or not people need this shit when y'all give out money to these corporations and these different agencies and different areas that benefit you and who certainly don't need this money. When you bail out Wall Street, you bail out the different industries, like, and you're going to debate whether or not the average American needs money to live on from month to month since March of last year when you've only given them fucking $600 potentially a month from unemployment benefits.
Right.
And so that's for motherfuckers who actually have lost their jobs. Like, never mind the facts of the folks who are already underemployed and not getting the hours, who weren't actually jobless; they were just laid off. So I'm not even sure they qualify for the $600 in unemployment.
Right.
Like it's just bullshit. Like don't get me started. But we've been going for a little bit, man. I say we just say fuck it because we could keep. There's a bunch of shit we could keep talking about, but we probably will try and turn this into a part two, or just because. And I said that on purpose because I wanted to honor all you Trumpsters. A part tour. Like we're gonna bring on. We're gonna find somebody who believes these fucking conspiracies like legitimately, and I want to bring because I want to get I want to peek inside the mind of one of these motherfuckers.
I'm gonna tell you, it. You say that now, but I'm
No,
gonna
I'm
tell
intrigued. I'm
you, yeah.
intrigued. I'm intrigued. But that being said, like we'll kind of put a bow on that shit. But take it. Let's take it on to the what the fuck news segment. I got a couple, dog. But I'll let
Mm.
you go first.
No, go ahead, go ahead. I actually didn't have one for this week. Um, I looked at a couple of stories, but I didn't really consider them what the fucks.
I got you. I got two. All right.
Okay.
So first one, I thought this shit was creepy as fuck. Right. Okay. So recently, Microsoft was granted a patent to reanimate dead people as 3D chatbots.
Oh yeah, that they
That shit is bananas. That's some Black Mirror shit right there.
yeah, man. Because now you basically doing AI. You basically taking a person's. What they doing is they're taking a person. So here's a message. They're taking the person's messages
Mm.
and voice from like voicemails and stuff, and they're getting the algorithms to actually reanimate this person so you can have a conversation with
And so basically what they're doing is yeah, so and they're doing it via like social media posts, videos and private messages that could be like downloaded into like a 3D lifelike model of the deceased. So like I don't know if folks if the younger folks don't remember, but if you're old enough, you remember what was it? Was it a Pepsi commercial that had like the digitized dude
them. Max
that
Headroom.
Max Headroom? Was that Pepsi?
I think that's Pepsi. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, so
Pepsi.
it's like that's basically got like a
I could double check.
3D online like personality and basically bringing this person back to life. If you've seen Avengers or Captain America, like there's a Hydra scientist that somehow they've transferred his consciousness into a computer. Basically, that's what they're talking about. So Microsoft has legitimately been granted um, a patent for that. This is why people don't trust Bill Gates. Because Bill Gates is
Yeah,
Microsoft, right? This is why people don't trust his ass because of shit like that, right? Like I think it shit's just fucking creepy. And but the problem is it's probably going to gain traction because you're gonna have people who are gonna be like their loved ones that they miss. If they can have the opportunity to find a way to still have conversations with them, they're all for that shit. I ain't
right.
here for that shit. That's some AI technological pet cemetery shit, and I'm not here for
It's just fucked up is what it is, because I mean, what does that do to the mourning process
it.
at that point?
Right,
I mean,
right.
this is almost going back in the 90s. Like literally, I was at Purdue. Yeah, back in the 90s, they were talking about a company that was trying to figure out, instead of burying people, because you go, oh, we're running out of space to bury the dead. They were trying to figure out a way how to launch people into space and then use satellites so that you can track your loved one, and kind of, as they spin around the globe in your orbit with all the fucking space junk, you can track your loved one from a satellite and go, you see that, that's grandma right there. And
Right.
they were trying to do that shit. That's fucked up.
That's weird as fuck too. Like
That's some weird shit.
y'all weird. Like that's real talk. Like so this reanimation shit reminds me of what the fuck. There is a what is it?
Oh, and Max Headroom was Coke. It wasn't Pepsi,
Coca
it was
Cola.
Coke.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's a series on Amazon Prime, and basically people are downloading their consciousness like before they die into like a basically a computer system, a computer program. Um, and I'm gonna find the name of it, but That's what it reminds me of. So
Mm.
I just thought that was some, you talk about, what the fuck. I saw that shit. I thought first I thought I was being punked. I thought it was like I thought it was a satire, and I was taking a look at, it, but it's legitimate. It's real
Damn.
talk. Like, it's straight out of a Black Mirror episode. You watch Black Mirror?
Yeah, I've seen like 4 Black Mirror episodes, and each one of them were fucking weird as shit. Because it's not a common, it's not
Right,
like a normal show where it's a common theme or a common thread.
right,
Each episode is different. So, but yeah, that shit's fucked up.
right. So I'm trying to find the name of that fucking
Don Julio, the gentleman's drink.
no, I mean I just can't remember the name of it, so I'm trying to search it while I'm online with y'all. But anyway, I'll jump into the other one. So the other one is another technology one. So in Hong Kong, it's out of Hong Kong.
Mhm.
Makers of Sophia, the robot, plan to mass rollout amid pandemic. So basically, in Hong Kong, they've developed social robots that can take care of the sick or elderly. So there's a YouTube link. We'll put it on, um, the show notes. Basically, there's a legitimate animated robot that can have certain conversations with folks, and they're being used to keep the sick or elderly comfortable and keep them company in the pandemic. But the company wants to somehow, now they want to mass produce the robots by the end of the year and sell them. Now, if that don't sound like iRobot, I don't know what does.
That is iRobot for real. Like that is the whole. That
that's
is the.
exactly
That's
that's exactly
exactly shit.
but
See,
and that's
this is what I'm
legitimate.
talking, man. This is what I'm saying. Like that type of shit. That is that's freaky because on one hand you go, well, that's nice because truthfully, again, uh, you have a lot of caretakers, and I would like to give a shout out to all the caretakers, especially caretakers of the elderly, because we do our elderly wrong in this country. So if you're literally taking care of the elderly, shout out to you. But truthfully, caretakers, I mean, it is a lot for them to take care of elderly patients. It's including the ones with dementia and Parkinson's. Like that takes a lot out of you. So I commend them on creating this robot that doesn't have the same sense of patience that a human would have, where we would probably lose our patience and they would, the robot will stick around. So I commend them on that. But that is definitely iRobot. Like that's
Re-
freaky as shit.
and real quick before come back to this, so the series on Amazon Prime is called Upload. That's what it was.
Mm, mm.
One season out, like basically that's what the shit was. But so yeah, so this shit, Hanson Robotics is the name of the company. It's based in Hong Kong. They said they have 4 models, which include Sophia, which is the one that's keeping the elderly company, would start rolling out of factories in the first half of 2021. Just as researchers predict the pandemic will open new opportunities for the robotics industry. That's some weird shit, man. Like, Hansen said he aims to sell thousands of robots in 2021, both large and small, without providing a specific number. Says Sophia and Hansen robots are unique by being so human-like that can be so useful during these times where people are terribly lonely and socially isolated.
That I don't like the way that shit sound.
If y'all could see Greg's face,
I don't, I'm serious. I don't like the way that shit sound. When you look at the YouTube episode of this
uh,
episode, I'm just gonna tell you right now, my face tells the story. I don't like the way that shit sound at all.
yeah, it sound that's some. Yeah, be cautious about that shit. Like for real. Like you wanna that
Yeah.
go watch iRobot and tell me how that shit turned out. And that's
Speaking
what this is.
speaking of which, before we get out of here, something else they should watch. Uh, One Night in Miami.
Okay, so we were gonna watch that.
Yeah.
I've heard mixed reviews about it. I've heard that Malcolm is portrayed a particular type of way, and I don't know. I'll take a look at it, but I've heard some people had some issues with the portrayal of some of the folks in that one. So
Well, put it this way. It portrayed Malcolm at the crossroads he was at.
Okay.
It portrayed to me, I won't say it portrayed him correctly. I would say it portrayed him in a time where he was most vulnerable.
All right.
And so a lot of people have a hard time looking at Malcolm X vulnerable, number one, because of who he is. So I think that's what they were trying to. Well, Regina King, shout out to Regina King. I think that's what she was trying to portray or get across was Malcolm was vulnerable at this moment in time that this took place. He was
Right.
just vulnerable.
I think, and the pushback you're probably gonna get, and primarily you're probably gonna get it from brothers, is because it comes at a time. So it's a movie, and I'm not saying women can't write and direct movies about brothers. Like black men do that all the time about black women. But I think there'll be a there you I guarantee you're gonna see pushback because it's gonna feel like it's for some folks it's gonna feel like an attack on black masculinity. Like somehow we're trying to find a way to create this layer of sensitivity. Not saying that Malcolm wasn't sensitive, but um, I mean, we know how we talk in the barbershop. Somebody would be like, "Okay, you're trying to make him into a sissy."
Well, no, but it wasn't even to that degree. I mean, because the overall, like by the end of the night of this one night in Miami, the
Mm,
overall is pure strength
yeah,
on the part of all four men. It's pure strength, but you could tell that what she was trying to get across was I could see where the review would say, oh, okay, I don't like what they did with Malcolm
this is what we're gonna
without
do.
giving it away. I'm just gonna say like there's a reason for it. Put it that
This
way.
this is what we're gonna do. Like you've already seen One Night in Miami, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch it here sometime either this week. I'm watch it soon. Like so, you guys are here now, and like me and Greg haven't had a chance to talk about it, but I think he'll probably agree. So, last episode I mentioned that movie American Skin, right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, 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 yeah.
so we're gonna get Greg to watch American Skin. I'm gonna watch One Night in Miami, and we're gonna get a couple other brothers as well to watch the shit. And our next show, we're gonna try and get a couple other folks on this, and we're gonna
Okay.
decompress American Skin and One Night in Miami.
One night in Miami. Yeah,
Yeah.
that should be good. Yeah.
And so the idea, because American Skin, y'all know how my response was to it. Like, I mean, I was very emotional on that one. I want to see what how other brothers felt about that particular movie. So that's what we'll do.
Okay.
Um, y'all heard it here first, so we can look forward to that shit. But hey, shit, good show, man. Had a good time. Shit, fuck it. You know,
Oh yeah.
we always think we're not gonna make it through. We always think we're not gonna get a lot of material and shit. And 2 hours later, motherfuckers like you niggas are still talking.
He go,
So
he go, y'all drunk or y'all just
right.
talking at this
Right.
point?
No, I'm stone cold sober. So, as always, thanks for joining us on this episode of the All Out of Fucks podcast. Episode 33 is in the books. Conspiracy theories. We hope if y'all got anything you want to talk to us about, if you got a conspiracy theory you want to, talk about or chop it up about, go ahead and drop that in the comments or drop that in our inbox, DM us, whatever it takes. Hit us up on Twitter, whatever it is. You can check us out on our Instagram, All Out of Fucks Podcast. Our Twitter handle is All Out of Fucks Pod. That's FUXPOD. And our website is alloutoffuckspodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Audible. You can get all the episodes. You can tune in, iHeartRadio, everything. So you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you like what you heard, then we'd appreciate you heading over to any one of those platforms and giving us a 5-star rating or just tell a friend about the show. We love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Greg, go ahead and let them know what you need to let them know.
Yep. As always, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. We are the All Out of Fuck podcast, and you can listen to us on Apple. We on Spotify. We on SoundCloud. We on Stitcher. We on Libsyn. We on Instagram. We on Twitter. We on Audible. We on Facebook. We all out of fucks.
We all out of them. We out of here. We'll holla at y'all. Peace.
Peace.